What's going on YouTube? All right, let's go ahead and jump into this, starting with a shopping list. You're going to want 3 cans of 2K clear coat. 2 of them are going to be used as a sealer. You can pick up a can of primer. I used black primer for this project specifically, and then I also picked up a can of white base coat, and basically this is just to help the color, the main color pop. I used a base pink, and so I applied the pink over the white. And then the grand total should run you somewhere around 110 bucks. So I actually was able to pick this up. It'll cost you a little bit more if you got to ship. Let's go ahead and start by activating the clear coat. So this is 2K. There's 2 parts. Take that bottom cap off the bottom. Take the little metal ring inside the cap. Thread it through the bottom. Pull this tab all the way down. That's going to cut the bladder open inside, which is releasing the activator. I like to rotate the can until I don't feel any more resistance of the blade cutting the bladder on the inside, and yes, you will feel that. Go ahead and shake the can up for at least a minimum of 2 to 3 minutes, and then you can go ahead and start applying. Now, to prep the body, I would say go ahead and sand this with something like 320 or 400 grit. When you're ready to start clear coating, just go ahead, take a tack cloth and go ahead and tack cloth it off. Just make sure that there's no extra dust, debris, or anything on the body itself when you go ahead and start sealing the body. Now, take your 2K clear coat and just go to town on this. Obviously, I am wearing a respirator. The urethane-based automotive paints are something that you don't really want to breathe in. You don't want to breathe in any paint, but this stuff is a little bit worse than the like Krylon or Rust-Oleum you can get at Walmart and Lowe's. So I start on the edges. It just makes it a little bit easier to go ahead and get it into all those nooks and crannies at first without adding too much paint in the long run. So basically, you're just going to go ahead and do this step until the can itself is empty. You will notice that the body will start to absorb the clear coat into the wood after a couple of passes, so just take that into consideration. Now, this is after the first coat. You can still see where the wood itself has not really accepted that clear coat or is absorbing the clear coat more, which is why that it still kind of looks dull and flat. Don't worry about that little spot. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that later. I'm not worried about runs at this point. Go ahead and move on to your second coat. Just go ahead and check that can up a little bit more before you start spraying. You're really not going to notice that the clear coat has absorbed into the body until around the end of the can. You'll probably get 3 to 4 coats out of one can, so just take that into account. Again, you're just going to go over the sides. However you want to do this, just make sure that you get the body sealed properly, and by the end of this, you will notice that. So this is after the second coat. You can kind of see where the clear coat's starting to build up around the neck pocket, but obviously it's still absorbing a lot of that clear coat as this base sealer. This is after your third coat, or my third coat, I should say. So you can really start to see the clear coat has really started to kind of almost flatten out and without being absorbed into the body. It's starting to get real glossy and stuff. And then after your fourth coat, it'll probably look like this, third or fourth coat, depending on how thick you put it on at first. But this is at the end of the can. This is after 4 coats. I generally wait about, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes between each coat. Moving on to the next step, you're basically just going to go ahead and sand this flat. And it's pretty self-explanatory at this point. Now, at this point, you're just going to go ahead and sand everything flat, and then we're going to use that second can of clear coat as a sealer. So I'm using 320 grit right now. I'm using a little DA. I got it off of Amazon. I think I paid probably around 40 bucks, and I think the 50 pack of sanding discs was around 20 bucks. So if you want to do this a little bit quicker, I would recommend picking up just a cheap DA. You can even get them from Harbor Freight for around the same price if you just want to go to the store and get it local. Now, as you can see, I took the pad off. I just wanted to make sure that I get into all those little nooks and crannies. It's a lot easier to do it by hand than trying to do it with a DA, so take that into consideration as well. So what I will recommend, and this is for the first can specifically, wait at least a minimum of 1 week before reapplying clear coat. You just want to make sure that the clear coat kind of has time to absorb into the wood and shrink into the wood as well. So moving on to the second can of clear coat. Now this is a week and a half, probably 2 weeks later for me. I waited about 2 weeks. So second can of clear coat, you're basically just doing the same thing as the first. Nothing really specific about this. I mean, honestly, you're basically just applying clear coat in succession. So again, you'll probably get 3 to 4 passes out of each can. You just want to make sure that you wait at least 15 to 20 minutes between each coat. And this is basically just sealing the body. Although, if you like the way that the raw wood looks, you can just go ahead and put everything together pretty much after about 2 to 3 weeks minimum for this. Again, you're going to want to go ahead and sand everything flat. Again, you could use probably 320 or 400 grit at this point. Now, I don't really feel that I need to show you me applying black primer, but I used a black primer because when I apply my white base coat, I'll just be able to see where I missed spots. So take a tack cloth, go ahead and wipe everything down, and then start spraying your white base coat. Depending on the color, you might use a different color base coat, or if you wanted, you could even use just a white primer, let that cure for a couple of days, sand it flat, and then apply your color over top of it. Nothing real crazy about applying paint. Obviously, don't do too much too quickly, and don't get too close because you don't want to get any runs. You don't want to have to do any extra work. Once you've applied your white base coat, you can then go ahead and start applying your actual color. I'm, like I said, using base pink. This is a pretty nice color. It's pretty bubblegummy, and I mostly am making this JazzMaster to play like drop tune stuff, so that's kind of why I went with pink. As far as the pink goes, just go ahead and do your coats very light. You don't want to get obviously too much because you don't want to make anything run at this point. You don't want to have to let this cure for about 24 hours before you sand it flat and then reapply your base color. After you have applied the amount of coats for full coverage, you can then go ahead and start by clear coating the body. Again, I will just run over the activation process. So go ahead, pull the gray cap off the bottom, take the metal ring out of the gray cap, put it through the pull down tab in the bottom of the can, pull the can down all the way, twist it until you don't feel any more resistance, and then go ahead and shake the can up for about 2 to 3 minutes. So moving on to clear coat, you want to wait, like I said, probably about 15 to 20 minutes between each coat. This goes for both primer, base color, and top color. As for the clear coat, I would say probably wait around the same 15 to 20 minutes. At this point, you just want to make sure that you're not doing too much too quickly, because if you do make this run, you could try to cover it up with more clear coat, but eventually you're going to have some kind of wonky stuff going on under there. So shake the can up 2 to 3 minutes and then just go ahead and start applying your clear. There's nothing real scientific about this process. Obviously, you're just applying paint, but the clear coat does have a tendency to run a little bit more. So just make sure you're about 6 to 8 inches away and doing light sweeping passes, but pretty quickly. And after you have completely clear coated it, I would say use the whole can, because obviously the more coats you have, the better chance of when you cut and buff without running into any issues where you're going to burn through the clear coat into the paint. I did have a couple little issues with that, but other than that, I wasn't really too worried about this. And this is pretty much how it looks after it's been clear coated. I took a few pictures, so it looks pretty good. It came out really nice. As far as wet sanding goes or cutting and buffing, I would just recommend stepping up in grits depending on how bad the clear coat is. If it's really flat, you could probably just go from 1500 to 2000 and then buff. All right, so I bought a cheap little Mighty Might neck from StewMac. Basically, they had them on sale, so I snagged one and I figured I would make a guitar with it. But this is how I do locking tuners. So I bought some Fender locking tuners. I have a rubber mallet, and basically what I do is I put the locking tuner into the mounting hole, and then I basically just tap it on the back. It's probably not recommended, and I know that there's a jig that you can purchase, but I didn't want to purchase a jig that was going to cost me $80 to $100 for one guitar. This is how I found that works pretty easy. Just take that rubber mallet, put the locking tuner into the hole, make sure that you're able to indent the posts, and then find a drill bit that's the same size as the posts, make sure that they're deep enough, and then you can go ahead and install your tuners. And once they are all installed, this is pretty much how they will look. Now, if the tuner itself doesn't sink all the way into the headstock, I use a 10mm wrench to just kind of suck it into place or tighten it into place. Also, probably not recommended, but it's worked for me, and I don't have any issues with my tuners. And this is what the tuners look like, all lined up nice and gold on that Fender style headstock, licensed by Fender. All right, and as far as assembly goes, it's pretty much easy at this point. Obviously, you're just going to want to put everything together. I start with the neck. Just go ahead and attach the neck and the neck plates, neck screws. And then I did ferrules. So for the ferrules, I will say this, it's a little bit easier to use a soldering iron, but there is a method to this, and it is actually a little bit tricky to learn if you have seen some videos on the internet. Anyways, what I would recommend, if you're going to do this trick, add a little bit of heat to the ferrule. So basically put the ferrule into the body, or as much as you can. Apply a little bit of heat for probably 20 seconds and then take it out. Get a dowel stick that fits into the ferrule, or at least is close enough. Use that little rubber hammer or a hammer to tap them into place. Once the ferrules are heated and the body is heated, without applying too much heat because you will crack the paint, you can then just go ahead and tap them into place. I will show you a picture of what I'm talking about because it did happen on this guitar. You can kind of see it right here in this video and the reflection a little bit right there. I picked up some screw lube, and I will say this much: after building a few guitars, this stuff works magic. It makes it easier for the screws to go in. You don't really need a whole lot. I actually used too much because for some reason, if you use just too much, it will start to kind of smush out from the screw holes, so take that into account. I'm using Dunlop strap locks. Go ahead and tighten those into place. Doing the front one now. All right, and for the pickup, we used a Seymour Duncan Nazgul. So I went with a single volume, single humbucker little setup, kind of like Tom DeLonge did, and Eddie Van Halen and all those people. I just find it a little bit more simplistic. There's not a lot to go on. I don't have to switch between pickups and all that crap. I originally was going to use a gold humbucker cover, but I couldn't find one that would fit over the Seymour Nazgul. For some reason, the Nazgul is pretty fat and just wouldn't accept any of the bridge pickup covers, so there's that. Go ahead and install your pickup into the pick guard, and then we're going to go ahead and start soldering this together. Now, easiest way I've found is just go ahead, especially for these JazzMaster style or Tele style cup jacks. I'm using a football jack, but anyways, so I went ahead and just soldered everything outside of the body for the input jack and then slid it into place. I ended up actually having to sand out the input jack hole just because the input jack itself was a little too fat to fit in there with the extra paint. So take that into account as well. And once everything is soldered together and put together, it should look something like this. Now, this is a Tom DeLonge style wiring setup, so I will drop a picture of that somewhere around here, but basically it's pretty easy. Basically, you twist the red and the white wire together. There is a black wire. It goes to one of the lugs on the volume pot. You're going to take the green and bare wire, solder them to the back of the pot. You're going to take your hot lead output and solder that to the middle lug. You're going to take your sleeve ground from the input jack and the ground wire from the bridge and solder them to the back of the pot as well. In the picture, you can see the sleeved ground from the input jack is soldered to the very last lug and the back of the volume pot. Pretty easy. That's why I like single pickups. Now let's go ahead and listen to the tone test. Alright, so that was basically the build. So I kind of kept it simple. Basically, I just purchased a pre-made neck from StewMac. This is one of their Mighty Might necks, licensed by Fender. It's actually pretty decent for what it is. If you're just looking for a cheaper replacement neck, but you want something kind of quality, I feel that these are pretty good. The only problem I don't like with these is at the very bottom here, there's like a tang or like a little lip that comes off at the bottom of the neck. So this way, for this guitar specifically, it kind of hangs over, I don't know if you guys can see that in the video, it kind of hangs over the pick guard. Now I did have a problem originally with this neck, that the neck pocket itself was actually too fat or too big. So this neck sat higher in the neck pocket than it needed to, which caused the saddles to basically sit pretty high on the body. So take that into consideration and take that into account. I don't know if having a Warmoth neck made for this guitar specifically would fix that issue, but the problem is with this guitar, I've already actually routed out and kind of flattened this neck pocket as much as possible to make this neck sit into the neck pocket more evenly. I do have to actually go back in and take this off, and I have to sand a little bit off of this base side where the neck doesn't sit entirely flat. It kind of sits a little like cockeyed like that. But other than that, it's pretty flat. These are crafted in Indonesia, so I think that these maybe have a little bit better quality than like a Chinese made neck that you'd get off of Amazon. I think grand total for the neck itself, I paid like $147 or something, and I believe that included tax and shipping, if the shipping wasn't already free. But basically they were like 125 bucks. I think StewMac had these on sale. So as far as the build goes, I mean, basically it is an alder body from Warmoth with a single humbucker cutout. I put the Seymour Duncan Nazgul or Nazgal, however you want to pronounce that. The bridge is a American Fender made gold bridge. I got it through eBay, so I'm not 100% sure of how genuine this is. We got some gold ferrules for string through. Single gold volume flat knob. Black pickguard. So originally I wanted to paint this guitar black and have like a gold pearl in it, but it's really hard to get a straight black body with like a gold flip to it. That's originally how I wanted to do this guitar, but I tried spraying some test samples and I really couldn't get that. So my second choice was pink. I was going to go with like a more hot fluorescent pink, but I like this one just because it kind of reminds me of like a bubblegum pink. We did some Fender gold locking tuners in the top. We got one gold string tree. It does have a skunk tail. If I were going to get a different neck for this, I obviously would get block inlays because I just love the look of the JazzMasters with block inlays. Gold Dunlop strap locks and a gold football style input jack. So we just did that. I just wanted to keep this guitar simple and make it kind of cool. Something unique that not like everybody has. I know it's more of like a Tom DeLonge-ish style, I guess if you want to consider it that. You know, Van Halen or whatever. But a single basically a single humbucker, single volume knob, just keeping it simple. Hardtail string through bridge. Again, if I were going to go with a different neck, I would do block inlays and probably like a 70s style Fender Strat neck. But other than that, I am pretty happy with this. I mean, basically the run through on the pricing for this guitar. So it was $195 for the body, and that didn't include shipping. So just take that into account as well. $147, like I said, for the neck. So as far as the hardware goes, the bridge, the gold Fender bridge off of eBay, which they considered genuine, was $50. It was $107 for the gold Fender tuners, and I got those off Amazon. $15 for a Seymour Duncan 500K volume pot was off Amazon. $35 for the goodies, which was basically screws, knobs, neck plate, ferrules, string ferrules, input jack, etc. So that all cost about $35 for all that. The pickguard from Warmoth was $48, and that didn't include the shipping cost on that, so take that into account as well. The Seymour Duncan Nazgul was $109, and I believe I ordered that from Warmoth also. I probably ordered it at the same time that I ordered the pickguard. I don't necessarily remember. I couldn't find the receipt. And as far as the paint goes, so basically we used 3 cans of clear coat. 2 were used as sealer, 1 was used as clear coat for clear coating the paint, 1 can of black primer, 1 can of white base coat, and 1 can of pink. So basically the clear coats were $22 each, so that's $66. The can of primer was $13, can of white and the can of pink were $15 each. So roughly about $80 to $90 for this. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, grand total for this guitar, I mean, building it like this specifically cost me about $770, give or take. I did have some of the pick guard screws already, but I had to order more. I also already had the gold humbucker screws, which I was originally going to put a gold humbucker cover on this to make it kind of all uniform rather than it being like straight black on the pickguard. I couldn't find a humbucker cover that would fit this properly, so I just nixed it all together because I didn't want to keep heating up the back of the pickup and ruining the magnetics and everything inside of it, which can ruin a pickup. So if you hold the heat on there for too long, it will destroy this. And as far as strings go, I used some Ernie Ball 56 through, I think it was 11, the not so slinkies. It was like the tealish green package. So we got those on there. We got it intonated pretty well. If you guys want to see a video on how to intonate pretty easily, just drop a comment or something. I don't know if that's something that interests you. I know there's already a million videos out there, but I think we could probably shorten one of those down and make it a little bit faster and more precise. Anyways, this thing plays like a dream. Hopefully you guys like that. We did some tone test on this guitar. The only thing I will say that I want to get for this specifically is a actual like metal style pedal, because the only guitar pedal that I have that is like a sort of distortion pedal, I got it off Amazon. I think it was like $20. I don't even remember. It was like Donner maybe. And that one's good for like the majority of rock and roll, but this guitar itself needs something a little bit more wild. So I might pick one of those up at some point. Other than that, the neck itself, and I will talk about this, the neck is actually done pretty well. So when I first got it, I did also purchase, I mean, this was a little bit longer ago, but I did purchase one of the StewMac fret end files. When I got this, it wasn't too bad, but I think if I remember correctly, I did have to go through and kind of clean up the edges and stuff on this. This is actually the second neck from this guitar. The first one I ordered, StewMac, the neck was actually twisted a little bit towards the headstock. I reached out to StewMac, and they actually sent me another brand new neck without even me having to send back the other one, which I was kind of surprised that they didn't want it. But that was pretty much it. So I think that this thing is pretty sweet. I love the JazzMaster style bodies. I just think that they look cool. I love Strats and I love Tellys, but I think if I had to, I would like to get an actual JazzMaster, whether it's a Squire or a Fender, but I only really got Squire money. So anyways, if you guys like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like this, also give it a thumbs up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons. I'm Jordan, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.